Hey friends, welcome back to the Graphically Hip channel. Thought I would do a bit different of a tutorial. This one is going to be for beginner users, just kind of getting you used to using some of the most basic tools in Illustrator that will help you be able to do your own designs so that you're not left um, having to purchase designs from Etsy or from other places. Keeping in mind that we are never stealing images from the internet. Just thought I'd add that in. So I'm just going to take you through some of the what I feel is one of Illustrator's weaknesses, which is they don't have a heart tool. So when I was a beginner, I would always go on to my vector website where I buy vectors from, which is vecteasy.com. And then I would just download a heart from there. And then because I'd be in a hurry, I wouldn't save it and then I wouldn't have it ready next time I needed it. So, anyway, I'm just going to teach you all how to draw a heart, which is actually very simple, but it uses a few different tools. So, I'm going to start with my Artboard tool, which is here, and I'm just going to draw a simple artboard. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than usual. And then I'm just going to go to my rectangle tool. So that's right here. I'm just going to free form draw a rectangle in whatever kind of width and height that I want. And you can play around with this depending on what kind of heart you want. And I'm just going to give this a color so we can see it. Then I'm going to select my rectangle and copy and paste it. And the keyboard shortcuts that I use there, and I'm on a Mac, so wherever I say command, if you're on a PC, you're going to use control. So I hit Command C and then Command F. And what Command F does is it pastes your shape exactly in place. So now you'll see that I do have two shapes there, but I wanted it to stay exactly in place, so I left it there. Now I'm not going to click anything. I'm just going to hold my cursor up in the corner or on the side until I get that double-headed arrow. And then I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to drag. So holding Shift, if you look at the little gray box with the numbers in it, that will drag my shape at 45-degree increments. Or rotate, sorry, that'll rotate my shape at 45-degree increments. If I don't hold Shift, it'll just rotate it however I want. But because I want this to be an exact 90-degree copy, I'm just going to hold it and put it there. So now I have two rectangles that look like kind of a cross shape. So I'm just going to select them both. And then I'm going to select my main rectangle and highlight it so that I'm selecting both, then selecting one by itself, not holding Shift or anything. And that makes this my key object, because what I'm going to do next is use my align tools, and I want to align this rectangle to this rectangle. If I wanted to align this rectangle to this rectangle, well, then I'd select that one as my key object. And in this case, it really doesn't matter which one we pick, but because I said I'm going to pick the original one. When you do that, you will see that this button here changes to align to key object. Just automatically it will go to that, or it should if it's working properly. If I unselect that, you'll see that that key goes away and it'll just be under align to selection, or sometimes align to artboard will be selected. So just watch here. I'm going to reselect my thing and then my key comes back on. So there are different options you can pick from, and we want to make sure align to key object is selected. These are your align tools, and you can also find them under Window and Align. So for my workspace, I have them saved over here. I just like to work with the one that's already open though, and that's up here. So what I want to align this to is the left side. So that's a horizontal align left, as well as the bottom. So that's a vertical align bottom. Now you can see my heart shape starting to take place. So what I'm going to do next is deselect everything by just clicking on the outside area. And this is a step that you could have done before you copied and pasted your rectangle, but I'm just going to show it to you twice because it warrants showing twice. So I'm selecting my rectangle, and now I want to get my direct selection tool, which is also the letter A on the keyboard. When I hover my mouse over one of these little nodes inside the rectangle, you'll see that that kind of half moon shape shows up under my cursor. That means I'm about to round some corners. But I don't want to round all my corners. So I'm just going to select the nodes of the corners I want to round, which in this case are my top two. So I'm selecting this one, and you'll see how it turns it that darker blue. And then I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to select this one. Now both of those nodes are selected, and I can just round those ones by themselves. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Now you see my heart shape really starting to take effect. So now I'm going to select the whole thing. I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to rotate it 45 degrees. And there's my heart shape. Now, you wouldn't want to send this to print as is, especially if you were adding your roll and cut line to this, and I will show you why. Now you have this cut line as well as this cut line. And even though you can't see it in Illustrator, it will still cut there and there. And we obviously don't want that. So I'm going to select my whole shape, and I'm going to go to my Pathfinder tool, which is also under Window Pathfinder. And I'm just going to use my Unite option. I don't often call this Unite. I usually call it Weld, but because this is a beginner tutorial, you may know this tool as Unite. There we go. All done. Now, I don't really like the way that this heart is shaped. And so I'm going to edit it myself. And this might not look the best, but I'm going to try some stuff here. So I'm going to use my direct selection tool because that's the tool that I use to edit nodes with. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this node, and I'm going to shift select the other couple nodes in there. I'm just going to hold shift and drag them down a little bit. And you can see how that kind of distorts the top shape of the heart. And in this case, I don't really care. If I really did care, though, you could go back and edit your rectangles and make your rectangles more narrow to have like that more narrow heart shape. But again, in this case, I really don't care. So now we have our heart. And I'm just going to show you quickly what the eraser tool does. Where is my eraser tool? So mine is hovered inside my scissors tool. Yours might be already out by itself or showing in your menu like that. Just depends on what your settings are and what my settings are, etc. And then I get this kind of target shape. See what happens there? But I want this to be a bigger eraser. So what I'm going to do on my keyboard is I'm going to press the button on my Mac. It's right above the return key. You'll see two sets of brackets. One set is like a square shaped bracket, and on the same key above it is like a curly shaped bracket, I guess. I don't know what those are actually called. But I'm going to hit the right side bracket. So the square bracket that you would hit at the end of a sentence. I'm just going to keep pressing that. And what that does is it increases the size of my paintbrush. or in this case, my eraser. So I'm just going to hit that until I decide the size of my eraser is where I want it. And then I'm going to draw a line. Now I've just turned that heart into two different shapes. And just because out of habit, I would normally just turn this into one shape by hitting Command 8 or right click and make compound path. So that turns that heart back into one shape, and you're about to see why. So I just wanted to show you how to use a gradient and add a gradient color to this heart. And then I'll show you why breaking this heart into two shapes is a mistake in this case. So I'm going to go over here to my gradient tool and just show you a little bit around there. So in here, we have some different options for how the gradient will show up. So I'm just going to pick that one for fun. Oh, and I have my outline selected, so I actually want to switch that to there. And then I'm going to turn that into nothing for now. So now I'm working back with my fill. I've added a gradient. There's different settings you can use for the gradient. So this is a linear gradient where it goes from one color to the other in like a line, similar to this bar right here. We also have radial gradients, which will make your gradient into a circular pattern, as you can see. And actually, I'll just to emphasize really how circular that is, I've just moved that around, and I'll show you that tool in a minute. And then we have the freeform gradient, which is actually a newer tool to Illustrator. And this one takes a minute to load. So what this one does is it allows you to create your own gradient however and wherever you want it. So these little points you can totally move around and edit. You can add points by just clicking your mouse. And of course, it's not going to let me move one down, is it? No, it's not. Okay. So I guess this only works for a solid shape, not for a compound shape. But anyway, you get the idea. And then if, let's say you don't want purple there, you want it to be some other color. So then you could just go in and select, I want that one to be yellow. And I want this one to be red. And I want this one to be orange. And then you can move them around and play with them and do whatever you want. So that's a really cool feature that Illustrator just added in the last couple of years. And I'm going to put this back into a linear just because I wanted to show you this two-piece heart and what it would look like if we didn't have the linear, or if it wasn't a compound shape. So I'm just editing these right now. Now, something that's really cool about this is you can get a little more editing capabilities by hitting the G button, which is also the gradient tool button. So now, right now, this is how the gradient is set in this heart, but I can take this and kind of match that line that I just made with the eraser tool because I want my gradient to go kind of in that same direction. So all I have to do is hit the G button, which will give me this cursor here. And then I'm just going to click and drag. So now I can put it in that same sort of line as my eraser. And you'll see the more that I drag, the colors will change. And you can see where the colors are on that bar. So you can see how it starts out as yellow, turns into orange, and then medium orange, and then eventually red. And as you drag it, those colors will follow that bar. And you can do some neat things by just dragging and moving this around. So in this case, I just want to make it close to the same as my eraser line, and I want to drag the red in because I want a little bit more red than normal. Now, let's say you didn't want the colors that you had here, so you can always go back into here and edit those gradient colors. So if I want to, like, for me, I want to take this kind of pinky red color right out. So I'm literally just going to click it and drag it off and let go. And now that color's gone. But let's say I wanted to replace it with like a purple or something. Now I just have to hover my mouse wherever I want to put a new color and click. And then it's going to add that color back in, or whatever color is sort of between this color and this color is what it will naturally add in. But if you double click that, you can just add in and pick whatever color you want. That's not really awesome, but whatever. Shows you how to do that. So now I have my gradient heart, which is one compound path, but I told you I wanted to show you what it would look like if it were not a compound path. So I'm going to select my heart and I'm going to right click and I'm going to say release compound path. You see how that blue moved? That's because now that's its own shape, and I can now go in and edit anything about that shape. I can make it the complete opposite direction of the upper one or do whatever I want because now it's the same shape. But if I select my shapes again and turn them back into a compound path, now it takes and does the exact same thing as before. And then the next tool I wanted to show you was how to type on a path. So I'm going to show you a couple of different cool things we can do with text in here. So the first one is, let's say I want to type something on the edge of this heart. So I'm going to go over to my text tool here, and I'm going to click the little arrow or press and hold on the type tool, and then click on Type on a Path tool. That will allow me to put my mouse onto the edge of this heart and just start typing. Oh, and it won't let me do it on a compound path, so I'm going to release that for now. And go back and select my tool, and I'm going to start right here. So let's say I'm going to write, I love designing. And yes, it took away my color, but that's okay. We'll get back to it. And that font is super boring, so I'm going to change that font to something nice and thick that would be easy to cut. Whenever I design something, especially logos, I always design keeping in mind how hard it's going to be to cut out of vinyl. So I never pick really super thin fonts. The other thing is, if you're designing a logo for somebody, you always have to design keeping in mind all the different applications they might eventually need. So that could be screen printing, that can be embroidery, where letters that are too thin or too small won't stitch properly. It could be cut vinyl, it could be printed vinyl, just all the different things. And I see my eye didn't go, so I'm just going to retype it. Okay, so now I have some text, and I don't like where it's sitting, so I'm going to choose my direct selection tool and I'm going to edit where it's sitting. So you do that by just hovering your direct selection tool over one of the three blue lines that stick out. So this is the left one, this is the center one, and this is the right one. So I can move, oh, I lied. This is the right one, this is the center one, this is the left one. So because this text right now is sitting under left align, it's just going to sit by that left line there. If I move it to center align, then it's going to put it halfway between the left line and the right line. And then obviously if I change it to right align text, it's going to crowd over to that right line. So I'm just going to leave it in center right now. I'm going to drag this over because I want to put my text over here. And then I'm going to push this one over so it falls over there. And then let's say I want to have this text go inside the heart rather than on the outside of the heart. Now I'm going to select my middle line, which is very hard to see right now, but if I zoom in, you'll see it's right there. Sorry, I just had to take a really quick break and I'm back. So now we have our direct selection tool selected. And I was showing you how you can move this into the inside of the heart. And you do that by grabbing the middle blue bar. And you have to get it until you see that. You see the little image under the cursor with the horizontal line and the up arrow? That's the one you want to show up when you hover. And then you just start pulling. Just pull it down. And it'll come down to the inside of the heart, and then you can move it around wherever you want. So let's say we want to put it there. Now, I know I told you that that we would need to get our color back. And what I should have done is copied that shape before turning it into text. So really quickly, I'm just going to go back and get that shape back. And then we'll put this back where it was. So I'm just hitting undo a whole bunch of times till I get back to where we want to go. There's our shape. So I'm just going to hit Command C and put that on the clipboard. And then I'm going to go to edit, and then I'm going to hit redo a whole bunch of times so we can get back to where we were. So that's Shift Command Z. Oh, and it's not going to work. So Shift Command Z just a whole bunch of times to get back to where we were. Sorry, I should have done that in the first place. Okay. So now we have our shape, our heart shape with the text in it. And I'm going to hit Command F to put that color back where it was. And I'm going to send that to the back layer. And I did that with a keyboard shortcut, but basically if you just right click on your shape and go to Arrange, Send to Back. And now it's there. Another cool thing that we can do is we can draw our own line. So let's say I'm going to grab the pen tool here. And I'm going to draw a line from here to, I don't know, about there. And then I'm going to grab my type on a path tool. So now that line that I just made is a path, so I can type on it. And I'm going to just type the words so much because I love designing so much. And I'm going to make it huge. And actually, I'm going to bring that down by about half because I'm going to add in a word. So freaking much. Okay. So I'm just selecting all the text by triple clicking it. And I'll make this bigger. So now you see the bigger that I make it, now I've run out of room on my path. So all I want to do now is grab my direct selection tool again, which is the letter A. And I'm just going to drag my path, grab one of the nodes and drag it out like that. And then grab this node on this end and drag it out like that. And now I have enough room for all of the text to show up. And I'm just going to grab it and move it in the middle. And because I don't like the way this text is sitting right on the edge of the color, I'm just going to make that a bit smaller so that it sits inside. So there, now we have a design that has text on the inside, and this text will remain that text on a path until you do otherwise. So you can still go in and edit where this text shows up. Move it inside the heart, move it outside the heart. So maybe we want it there instead. Now, before I send this to print, though, I would get rid of that. Save a copy so that you can edit it if you need to. But then I would right click and go create outlines. Okay, now you can go in and change the color of that if you wanted to. We could make it the same color as the heart, like the same gradient. And then you see how we lose the yellow over here. So then I just go to my gradient tool and switch the direction. That's what this button does. So then it'll start with the red instead of ending with the red. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then if this were me, I would just add a little bit of an effect to it to make it really pop. So we could do that by using the drop shadow or the outer glow tools, which are found under the effect menu. So I'm just going to use a drop shadow tool. And then you can see it helps the design pop a little bit. And the last thing I want to show you in this tutorial is how to use the opacity tool. So let's say that this kind of gradient color is a little too bold for what we're after. So we're just going to take the opacity tool, which also is found under window, and then is it transparency? No, I think it's under this one here, appearance, in one of these tools, but I just use the one that's up here because it's already up here. So I'm just going to click that and drag my slider back. And now I have like sort of this pastel kind of color, which is a little bit softer and a little bit, more suited to the design, I think. And then I would also turn this into the same color. And what I did there was I just used the eyedropper tool. So I selected my text and then I hit the letter I on my keyboard, or you can select this and then just click the object that you want it to match. Or let's say we want it to match the darker one. Now you can see that it did that to each individual letter, and I don't want that in this case. So to fix that, I'm just going to hit Command 8, or I'm going to ungroup it. Yeah, so Command 8 was the answer there, but what that does is it goes to compound path and make. So then it puts my gradient back where I want it. And I'm going to switch the direction of that because I want it to be the same as the heart. And there we go. So those are just a few of the most basic tools that you can use to design stuff. And I hope that you learned something new today. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button and the like button and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.